N7END, this is KT1RUN, testing out the new Yaesu FTM-6000 on 25 watts. Are you there, Rob?
Good morning, Gaston. N7END, just monitoring on HF frequency. Signal is full quality. Audio quality is perfect.
Hey, good morning, guys. I'm the Tech Prepper. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to talk about the new Yaesu FTM-6000R and my Manpack build based on that platform. But I have a quick question before we get started. I'm having a hard time finding enough hours to continue the channel, and the time that I do have is typically in the early mornings where I don't have adequate lighting, and the lighting situation in the house is also pretty terrible. So let me know if there's enough value in the content alone and whether you guys are willing to continue to put up with the poor production quality on the channel. If so, I'm happy to keep it going. If you guys aren't happy with the production quality, we may just close up the Tech Prepper altogether. But you guys let me know in the comments below. So let's take a look at the new Manpack build. And the Yaesu FTM-6000 is a radio that has already received a lot of criticism. It is a radio that's not for everybody, but I found that there are enough features that I like that I would actually do a new Manpack build. So let's talk about the features that compelled me to do this build before we get into the takedown and a few other concerns related to the FTM-6000. First and foremost, I like the footprint of this radio. It is about the size of my Yaesu FT818, which I would take portable. So more than anything, the footprint is in alignment with the way that I like to operate in a very portable fashion. Number two, it has a lot more power than my 818. Those are clearly two different radios, but this radio is a dual band radio with 50 watts on the high end, 25 watts in the middle, and 5 watts on the low end. So there are applications where my HT on 5 watts just won't be enough, and I figured 25 watts would be the sweet spot for my operating style. The third reason, and it's actually the most compelling reason, is the data port on the back side to allow me to do various packet operations. So my plan for this is to be able to do a mix of voice operations and packet work. I have a fourth option somewhere. Hold on. What's my fourth consideration? All right. Yeah, so the fourth thing that really compelled me to the FTM-6000 is its simplicity. It is no more, no less than what it was intended to do, and I like simple, especially for a device that will largely be used in public service or for emergency communication. Time for another sip. All right, so the features that I wish were available, and I'm hoping Yaesu watches these videos, I don't know if they do, but there are really three things I would have liked to see. The first is a sound card interface so that I could do more than just packet, basically any type of digital mode. So that would have been nice. I will be experimenting with my signal link in the future and a couple of other options for an external sound interface. The second is it would have been nice to have crossband capabilities. I'll do a future video on that, but now that I'm getting into public service, especially in wilderness areas that are somewhat remote, the HTs really don't have enough for me to get into the remote repeaters or some of the other stations, and being able to use the dual band, dual VFO of some rigs with crossband capabilities would have been really cool. I can do that with my D710GA, but not on this rig. And the third thing that would have been really nice, and it really is a nice to have based on my area, is single sideband. We have a very rich 2 meter and 440 single sideband community, and I have very effective coverage going 100 miles plus in multiple directions. So that's just personally what I would have liked to see. Even with those said, I still like the idea of this footprint and being able to do FM voice and digital. All right, so let's talk about some of the modes of operation that I plan to use. So like I said, this is a field expedient radio for me for public service, summits on the air. It's limited to 2 meter and 440, so I will primarily use this for FM repeaters on 2 meter and 440 since we have quite a few in this area and the areas that I like to travel. Simplex is also very robust here, especially on 440. I'm able to really make it out 30, 40 miles. And even with the mountains in the way, it doesn't seem to be a problem. I know that everybody's operating location is different, but in my location, 440 Simplex works phenomenally well, and I'm able to work 446.000, which is the nationwide simplex frequency. 2 meter simplex as well. But outside of that, the ability to do digital modes for packet using the Mobilinkd TNC, which is on this kit, I'll show that in a second. I'm able to do APRS, I'm able to do WinLink, and I'm also able to connect to our local BBS stations. We have a few in this area. So outside of that, what are the use cases for this Manpack? So I plan to essentially use this for mobile operations. In the RV, for example, I just have an antenna feed line coming into the cab, but I don't have a permanent install of the radio. So it's really nice just to be able to pick this up, open up the flap, and then drop the BNC feed line and turn on the radio, and all of a sudden I'm mobile. In fact, I used this quite a bit on a recent trip to Bisbee, Arizona, and it worked really well for a non-permanent mobile setup. Number two, I plan to use it for public service work in remote areas where I need a little bit more power than my HT, and I don't plan to use it more than 25 watts because of some constraints of the antenna, and we'll talk about the antenna in just a section, or at least the options for the antenna. Man portable on a peak, so we have a really vibrant 2 meter SOTA community out here, so this would be great just to tote up the hill and be able to make some SOTA contacts on all the local peaks. Now, I've even used this in the shack. It's portable enough where all I do is drop in the shack and attach the antenna. In my case, I have at 23 feet high a Arrow 2 Yagi, and it works great for most of my nets during the week. So it doesn't do everything, but it does enough that I find value in this system. Now, we are going to get to a full breakdown, and I'll walk you through all of the different components. Let's talk a little bit about how I plan to attach an antenna to this. So I'm mostly going to be doing some fixed operating in the shack with this, some mobile work, and some portable work. Now, the first antenna that I plan to use is actually in this pouch, and it is the signal stick by Signal Stuff. And the reason why I like this antenna is that it fits nicely in that little admin pouch. I can actually fold it on itself. And more than anything, this antenna, RF exposure aside, allows me to run up to 100 watts at 50% duty cycle, or I can run at 50 watts, which is the top end of this, at 100% duty cycle. I won't be doing that because of RF exposure, but likely the sweet spot for this antenna will be 25 watts, low and medium power. So this will be the first option. It'll always be with the kit. In the RV, I have a feed line coming into the cab, and I have a hood-mounted Comet SBB5, I think, over there, so I can actually run the full 50 watts, and that was the configuration I used when just traveling recently. I also have two portable antennas that I can bring with me. I've done videos on both of them. The first is a roll-up J-pole that I take with me for summits on the air, and with that on a mast, with a portable mast, I can run the full 50 watts and be far enough away where it probably is not going to be a problem in terms of RF exposure. And then the other one, which I've also done several videos on the channel, is the Arrow 2 2 meter 440 antenna, and it works really well for this setup, and I actually have quite a bit of gain and directionality with that. And I use it at home, in the field, mobile, and it's a great setup. So plenty of different options that are still portable in terms of this kit. All right, guys, so let's talk a little bit about all of the different pieces here. So starting on the outside, actually, before we do that, let me show you a size comparison real quick. All right, so this is my original Manpack. It's the Yaesu FT-818, and it's slightly taller than the 6000. So while they do have the same core bag, which is the Helicon Tech E&E pouch, I did have to modify the 818 so that I could actually clear the strap. And one of my goals with this build was to basically give you guys a parts list that is currently fully available today, and I didn't want anybody to go out and pick up the Helicon pouch and have to modify it. I do like it because it does resemble my PRC 117 Golf pouch, but bottom line is this Manpack is very close copy of the original one. It's just fully stock. So this is the Helicon Tech E&E pouch, and with the height of the frame, we were able to allow it to pretty much fully close and clasp. And the way that we were able to achieve that is I worked with the guys at ARMOLOQ to build the frame. We'll talk about that in a second, and just cut it just a tad bit shorter so that the flap can clear it. So the E&E pouch is really the first piece of gear for the Manpack. The second, and this is my third one that I'm using, is the 511 6.6 admin pouch. And I don't have a whole lot of gear in there. It can actually hold quite a bit more. The first item was the antenna. And in the past, I've also run the Comet BNC 24. It's rated for 20 watts, so I don't feel comfortable using it on the mid setting, which is 25 watts. So that's why I'm using the signal stick. I have room for the hand mic. I have a small 4.5 amp hour Yaesu lithium iron phosphate battery. I've been using these ones for years. I think for this build, I may upgrade to the 6 amp hour version. I haven't had an issue. I've been able to fully do all my nets on a single battery charge, and typically they don't exceed 90 minutes. And on receive, the FTM-6000 usually draws around 300 milliamps. On transmit, depending on how much you're using, quite a bit more, but I find for nets, I typically transmit around 5% of the time. So not a big deal. So the battery fully fits in there. That's again, the Yaesu 4.5 amp hour battery. Have a small weatherproof notebook. On the side, I have a mechanical pencil. So that's my preferred logging. And then on the inside, just have two more items. I have a BNC to SO239 connector. And the thought here is, depending if I'm working an event, sometimes they may use a PL259 connector. So this works pretty well. In my other kits, I have an Altoids tin with quite a few more connectors. And then for packet work, I have two options. The first one is included in the kit, and that is the Uli phone. This is an Android IP68 rated phone. I don't have a plan for it, so really inexpensive. I did a video on this. I even took a dunk test in the pool with a pup, and I use this to do WinLink and also APRS with APRS Droid. Still experimenting with the WinLink client, which is WOAD. But really that's it, very minimal interface. And I don't know if I mentioned the weight, but the total weight for this comes in at exactly 6 pounds with everything you're seeing here minus the phone. So that's it for the pouches. Let's go ahead and pull out the frame. And before we get started, I have been working with ARMOLOQ. They've been real great. They wanted to bring me into the design phase. This is, I think, the fourth Manpack I've built. I've built one on the 857, the 818, the 891, and now the FTM-6000. I think I may have even tried to do one for the 2980R, but haven't really used it in the field. So they wanted my feedback on how we could take a modern radio with parts that are still fully available and come up with a Manpack. So this was sent to me for free. This is the first iteration of the frame. We're in the process of doing a second iteration that should be the final one. And we're actually calling this one the TTP-6000 or the Tech Prepper 6000. Seth from ARMOLOQ wanted to have some fun with the product. I don't get anything out of this other than helping out another ham and then also having a really cool Manpack for myself. So just like the other TPA pack frame videos, it's the same thoughtful considerations to be able to remove the head, be able to run cabling through the various bits here, use the relocation mount to mount the antennas wherever you want. So that nothing really has changed there. And then you get full protection all the way down to the bottom and the top on all the connectors. So let's take this down a bit farther and we'll get more into it. So the first thing I actually have here is power. I won't be able to get this out, but the, well, I really did cinch up everything pretty nicely here. So the FTM-6000 comes with a very short pigtail that has a T connector. I'm not a big fan of the T connectors, so what I did is I purchased from PowerWorks this roughly 12-inch cable that has the T connector on one side and the Anderson power pole on the other, and it is the perfect fit to come up the body, out the side, through the bag, and be able to connect to the battery in the pouch. So I'll put a link to this below. So here's a better shot of that connector. In terms of the coax, the one thing, since we cut down the frame to be a little bit shorter, you do need to get a 90-degree elbow coax connector. It's going from PL259 to BNC. The BNC that I have here is RG8X. It's a BNC male to male. It's a 9-inch run. It's a little short, so I went ahead and ordered a 12-inch cable that is high quality, and I'll link to that one below as well. I just don't feel comfortable with the amount of tension I have on it right now. In terms of heat, I want to be honest with you guys. I tried everything to get this to overheat. Right now we are in our cool season in Arizona. And while running in the bag, I had a QSO for about 30 minutes where it was 50% duty cycle. And it did reach 120 degrees. This radio is rated to 140, and it does have some safety controls where it'll back down your RF output if it gets too hot. So I really didn't notice any significant heat buildup. And again, for me, this radio is designed to be field expedient. So 30-minute QSOs where I'm talking half the time is not the norm, and it passed with flying colors. So let's talk a little bit about the data port. So I have two cables here.
Okay, so I have two cables.
The FTM-6000 comes with a 10-pin mini DIN, and most of my Yaesu radios use a 6-pin mini DIN. So they do provide this cable. It's a 10-pin mini DIN on one side, which goes into the back of the radio, and then they give you a 6-pin mini DIN that is female. So you can reuse your 6-pin mini DIN cables you have already, and it did just that for the Mobilinkd interface. I believe the part number for this was the CT-164. In terms of interfacing with the Mobilinkd TNC, I just use my old 6-pin mini DIN cable that has the audio jack on one side. It's a little bit long, but I just wound everything up with a cable tie, and it works extremely well. The cool thing about the TPA pack frame is that it offers some mounting options. You can see here that I have the Mobilinkd TNC, and it's strapped to the top with a just a cheap Velcro strap that I picked up from Walmart. In fact, I have like probably 3 more feet of this stuff. It was just a couple bucks, and it actually does secure the Mobilinkd pretty nicely, and it doesn't move. One of the things I found though, running it in this configuration, is that there is a button that is easily pressed. Even squeezing the case too hard will turn it on. But in this configuration, I haven't had the Mobilinkd turn on accidentally. So really happy with it. In fact, the way that I get on the air now for digital is I just turn on the radio, put in the antenna, tune it to whatever packet frequency is appropriate, and then plug in the cable into the Mobilinkd TNC. And it fits really quite nicely, doesn't get in the way, and then when I'm done I just kind of take everything down in reverse order. So very field expedient and really quite nice. The wonderful thing about the Mobilinkd TNC for this application is that I have a single interface, which is the Bluetooth on the Mobilinkd. So I can use it in a very lightweight configuration for doing WinLink and APRS with just my phone, and that's it. So not a whole lot in the way of moving parts. But then again, I can go ahead and get full packet capabilities if I take out my Raspberry Pi field computer. And I've done a video on this a couple times already, and it's just a 3000 milliamp hour battery pack, a small USB micro cable, and then the Raspberry Pi with the Wi-Fi dongle and optional GPS. And that will also connect to Bluetooth. It'll connect to the Mobilinkd via Bluetooth. So if I want more capabilities, like being able to do packet work with BBS, for example, or use YAC, which is a more full-fledged APRS client, or use Pat WinLink, I can use this. So this is optional. So depending on how I want to run it, I can go with either the phone directly or the Raspberry Pi computer and then connect to it remotely with the tablet or the phone. So really quite happy with that. All right guys, so that's pretty much it for the first look of the FTM-6000 Manpack. Again, this radio isn't for everybody, but for my goals of public service to get a little bit more power when an HT isn't sufficient, this works great. The packability, the size, the footprint, access to the data port are all things that weighed in heavily. So with that said, guys, let me know down below if you want me to continue making these videos. I'm the Tech Prepper. Be strong, be safe, and be prepared. Let's wait for this car to pass by. Dude, come on, hurry up.